Hey everybody. So a lot of people know that I've been doing a lot of political events and a lot of street ministry, public ministry with the Ask an X Trans Anything project, and it's been pretty phenomenal. The responses have been pretty phenomenal. If I would have thought about it and uploaded a video, one of the quick videos, then I would have showed it. But it is what it is. So I wanted to talk about Maine politics and really, I guess, politics in general for everybody, about candidates, really, political candidates. And, I hear right here in Maine, I hear a lot of the candidates talking about how there have been like 140 something children that have died in the care of CPS, Child Protective Services. And I sit there and wonder, like, that's the number of victims that they've put into print, right? But that can't be possibly anywhere near what the truth is. So, and I wonder if these candidates know that CPS is the number one child trafficking organization in this nation. Really. I mean, like right here in Maine, CPS, Child Protective Services, has placed children in what they call lgbTQ safe homes without paperwork. Where are they now? That's the big question. Where are they? Because nobody knows. Nobody knows where they were placed. Nobody knows where they're at. CPS is doing the child trafficking. This is exactly what it sounds like. This is not some exaggeration. This is not my imagination. This is the truth. Child Protective Services is the largest child trafficking network ever. And I can tell you how dark Maine is. So I'm in contact with some groups like Veterans for Child Rescue, with Shattered Ops, and other folks and groups that go out and rescue children and target child trafficking rings and sex trafficking rings in general. But one of the things that I find very disturbing, because these groups work with HSI, with Homeland Security Investigations. They work with district attorneys and sheriffs and stuff like that so that they can come into a state and do their ops. Now, these people have connections everywhere in the nation, but none of them have any connections in Maine. And so that should pretty much tell you like how dark Maine is and how corrupt our district attorneys and our sheriffs and our everybody, how corrupt everybody in a position is in this state. And when I sat back and listened to a few of the candidates, very few, talk about Maine being a sanctuary state, what people didn't grasp was that they were only talking about Maine being a sanctuary state, as far as like they were referring to the illegal immigrants. But I've yet to hear a candidate speak of Maine being a gender affirming care sanctuary state and an abortion sanctuary state. I've yet to hear a candidate speak about that. So, do we all know what that means? Do we know what a gender affirming care sanctuary state is? It means that any child at any age can be put on experimental synthetic poisons, puberty blockers, and wrong sex hormones to halt, pause, or block their puberty without parental consent, without parental knowledge. See, puberty is not a disease. It's not an issue. It doesn't need to be paused. It doesn't need to be blocked. It means that any child can become a ward of the state of Maine and transitioned by a group of creepy, perverted adults that are more concerned with sterilizing and mutilating, confusing, sexualizing, and victimizing that children than actually protecting them. And so when New Hampshire had praised the governor because she signed a law into effect that stopped any child from under 18 from getting gender affirming care or being transitioned, right? But they never gave thought to the fact that those children can run away to Maine and legally be protected and transitioned. Once that child crosses the Maine state border, if they are alone, they become a ward of the state. If they are with an adult, that adult is protected as long as he claims or states that the child is here for either gender affirming care or an abortion. And the state will pay for it all. Maine has become one of the top states for child trafficking, and everyone is more focused on their hatred for one man, like the president, right, than they are about actually protecting and rescuing the children that are being sexually, emotionally, mentally, and physically abused on a daily basis by their own state government, by their own trusted adults, their unparents, their teachers, their counselors. These are the people that are abusing and victimizing these children. Every single one of the Democrats and some of the Republicans have been silenced with a lot of dark money, with a lot of perversions and a lot of secrets that would have jailed them, say, maybe 20 years ago. So there's so much more happening within these organizations and within the state government offices than many could ever fathom. So imagine designing, just sit back for a moment and imagine designing a program or a curriculum that would desensitize children to sexualized materials. Because that's what's being done. That's what the Maine Department of Education has done. That's what Out Maine is doing. They have designed, utilized, and pushed for ungodly, deviant programs that are targeting children of all ages. And so, yeah, the Department of Education is another branch of this perversion. This perversion is targeting and preying on children. They're devouring your children and your grandchildren. Maine is the worst of all of the 14 gender affirming care sanctuary states. It's the worst because it ties the hands of law enforcement officers from assisting parents in retrieving their children, because it protects predators. Predators that bring a child into the state for gender affirming care or an abortion are protected. And because we became a sanctuary state, the actual bill actually calls any out-of-state warrants or subpoenas or court procedures or proceedings hostile litigation. We had better really fathom this, because you might not like the messenger, and I don't really care, but you might not like the message, but you better heed these words, because when you get the chance to stand before one of these candidates and ask them a question or talk to them, then you had better let them know how important it is to stop the lgbTQ TransQueer cult from getting its talons into any more children. Tell them that we have to figure out a way to stop these unparents, these parents or unparents that are abusing their children. They're pushing their own children into this deviant, delusional cult of chaos. And this is a cult of chaos, of suicide and death. And if you think for one moment that the devil's goal is to make you trans, or the devil's goal is to make somebody an addict or homosexual or a pervert or a pedophile or alcoholic or to be a mass shooter. That is not the devil. The devil's goal is to kill you. The devil's goal is death. That's the devil's goal. It is a crime. It's child abuse to affirm, promote, protect, encourage, or celebrate mental illness and child sexualization. Can I say that again? It's a crime. It is child abuse to affirm or to promote or to encourage or to protect or to celebrate mental disorders, plural, and child sexualization. So ask your candidates if they have any idea how we can get new teachers, not teacher training, but new teachers in the schools. Because guess what? There is no sense in enforcing Title IX in any of the schools if the classrooms are full of activist teachers. Tell these candidates that they have to stand firm to protect children from any degree of being subjected to the lgbTQ TransQueer agenda. Ask them if they deem transgenderism a mental health issue or not, because I can probably think of one of the candidates just in the GOP that does not. Then you will know who to vote for, right? So the only solution in the whole entirety of the public government schools, because they're government schools. We call them public schools because the public pays for them, but they're government schools. So the only solution is homeschooling and co-op schools. That's it. There is absolutely no reformation for the public government school system. None, zero, because it is already corrupted. It is chock full of activist teachers and counselors and predators. And anyone who votes for a candidate that promotes, affirms, or takes part in the lgbTQ movement at all, the entirety of it, the TransQueer agenda, murdering unborn babies, or even assisting in grooming of children into any of these dangerous organizations, any candidate that does that is either a pederast. I mean, anyone who votes for the candidate that is involved in that. The voter, if you vote for a candidate who is openly pro lgbTQ, who's openly pro TransQueer agenda, who's openly pro abortion, then you're either a pederast or a pedo apologist, because there is no middle ground. And so I suggest that we all find out who our candidates are and what they really truly are all about. And if you don't like the candidates that are running, then get on the bandwagon, run for office. Don't whine and complain about what is not being done when you're not even trying to be a part of the solution. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I was going to show like 2 little quick videos, maybe just one, but this is what we need more of.
I was a transgender woman for over 20 years until my mental disorder was healed. The hardest part of detransitioning was accepting the fact that I suffered from an abnormal condition of mental confusion. That is the definition of gender dysphoria. I was the suicidal trans kid that's always brought up in these discussions. But I was also a suicidal trans adult, because affirmation, acceptance, and transition does not take away mental confusion, depression, or suicidal tendencies. Every person that identifies into the TransQueer gender movement is force-fed information that they are expected to repeat every time there are questions about biology or mental disorder being encouraged. The underlying issues and comorbidities go untreated while false narratives are pushed that being trans is normal. Anyone that knew me would have said I was happy, content, and secure being my true self. I was miserable, depressed, and suicidal. There are groomers pushing TransQueer gender ideology and for more social workers in schools. There are blinded people in this room that have no clue what the rainbow that they worship stands for. They think it means same-sex attraction. It stands for perversion. There are men in this room that desire more school social workers to have total access to confused, vulnerable children and their private innermost thoughts. I was targeted as a child by groomers. I was victimized, molested, and raped the groomers in these same positions when I was a child. I was desensitized and sexualized by the adults in my life that I was supposed to trust and confide in. Anyone that defends hiding information from parents, encourages mental disorders, or stands up for the lgbTQIA TransQueer gender rainbow cult should not be near children. Social workers are not using evidence-based materials. They do not have integrity. They are using research done by pederasts and groomers that manipulate the system to give them more access to children's personal secrets and issues. Pouring money into mental health would allow these social workers to bring in outside resources and trans rights activists, giving the deviants more access to children. It would also allow them to be middlemen for providing puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones. I took wrong sex hormones for over 20 years. I was sterile and had osteoporosis before age 30. This was me. Stop pushing this cult's agenda of delusion and perversion on these children, because if you continue, you will all be guilty of the mental, emotional, and physical, irreversible damage being done to these victims, especially the social worker, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need more people to step up, stand up, and speak out. We need more people that are able to speak into this to do so. And not just people who are looking to further their organization. And no, we just need people. There's plenty of people right here in Maine who have considered or went through transitioning, who have detransitioned. There are plenty of people who have been preyed on, who have been sexually abused, who have been trafficked. Let the people right here in Maine stand up, speak out, and push back. That's what we need the most. And we need it now more than ever. There's a whole lot of youth right now that are MIA. Nobody knows where they're at. And then there's a whole lot of others that are in the process of being transitioned, which means they are in the process of being sterilized and mutilated and butchered and victimized and abused, not just sexually, but mentally, emotionally. And it's time that we start standing up, speaking out, and pushing back.